Hi, this is Shohei, and today it's gonna be ancient Greek wrestling. This is a very deep and long topic that I wanted to discuss for quite some time now, because this is something that it always comes up almost indirectly when it comes to origins of techniques. And when we talk about ancient MMA or ancient grappling, for example, when we talk about the triangle choke being only 100 years old, or any type of choke, etc., we always say, well, the Greeks probably had it too. You'd always find this particular comment, and today I'm going to discuss ancient Greek wrestling, and particularly the idea that everything started from Greece, it went to India, and from India it went to China, and from China it went to Japan. There is this very popular narrative that this is how grappling traveled throughout the world, but there are some a ton of conflicting evidence actually, and I really want to discuss it with you. But what's interesting about this is not a break from Judo as a whole, because you will see that all throughout the world, when it comes to grappling, we always came to the same conclusion of how someone should win and how to conduct yourself, how to be courteous. And it is amazing how they done these or came up with these rules thousands of years ago, and we still abide by them directly and indirectly. Maybe there's a few changes, etc. So this video is for the Greeks in my audience. I know there are a few of you constantly leaving comments. You're very courteous and intellectual, so I appreciate the hell out of you. So this video is just for you. So this is not pancration, this is Palé, this is different, this is just grappling, there's no striking. Maybe pancration will have a video of its own, so not to be confused. We always say, oh, the ancient Greek is just pancration. No, there's many forms of combat: Palé, pancration, and I'm sure there are more, but the most noticeable form is the pure grappling, which is Palé, and of course pancration, where you had everything, even eye gouging and biting in Sparta only. It had also Palé in it, so it was like a MMA basically, where you had the wrestling and the striking, etc. So when it comes to the Greek wrestling in particular, the oldest evidence goes back to around the first millennia BC, and it was actually the first form of sport competition that was added to the Olympic Games, not the newest, which is 1896, but actually the from the ancient world's Olympic Games, which is it was added 708 BC. So this is how you would win a match in Palé or Greek wrestling. You have to score 3 points, and a point can be scored with the following options. The first one is the player or the wrestler should touch his back and hips and shoulders all flat, so kind of like a straight ippon. The second one is by tapping out, do a submission hold. And the third one is when they are put or forced out of the wrestling area. So when you tap out, you have to continue. You can tap them out 3 times in order to win, or you can put them out of the area. Maybe you are physically strong, you push them out 3 times, or you can win with all 3 options separately and scoring all 3 points differently. So it is nice because it shows technical superiority, it shows tactics, and also a wide range of how you should win. So I know a lot of people would say a joint lock should score a wazari, and it's only the choke that should score a ippon, because technically they are put to sleep, but a lot of people can still come up and fight with broken bones. So I believe this is a way how they thought of it. So this is very nice. So another thing, that there were rounds actually where one of the wrestler would be laying down on his abdomen and the other is on top of him. So like the parterre we have today in wrestling, but this time it's different. In ancient Greece, you'd have to choke them out and force them to tap, while in like wrestling, Greco and freestyle, you have to either gut wrench them, turn them over, scoring points, or lift them all the way up and arch your back and throw them for like the highest scoring throw, which is, I believe, 4 or 5 points. So we can see a lot of similarities, a lot of traditions that still survive till this day, specifically in Greco-Roman wrestling. But here, obviously, they grabbed the legs. They were pretty much, if you see their stance, you can see also like the body lock on his opponent, how he's holding him up with the sculpture here, like you see here in front of you. You would see that a lot of these techniques survived, and we're still using them in Greco-Roman wrestling, for example. So the oldest evidence is from the first millennia, like I said, so around the 3,000-year-old mark. You have pancration, which is also around the 2,500-year-old mark. You have Milo of Crouton. I'm sure you've seen the one that the man that's holding the calf is getting bigger and he's getting stronger. So it's a very good way of showing progressive overload. He was alive around the 6th century BC. So you would see that, for example, Mallayuda, the old naked wrestling of Mongolia, all of them are far older than Greek wrestling. So it kind of shakes the foundation of the theory that it all came from Greece and then it traveled throughout Asia thanks to Alexander. So there's not actually much evidence of this. I've talked about both. I've talked about Mallayuda and Kushti, the Indian, that stretches back 7,000 years, and you have the Mongolian naked wrestling and Chinese naked wrestling that stretches back all the way to 9,000 years. So this really puts a dent in the idea that it all came from Greece, especially the Eastern art. But nonetheless, all the Western grappling like freestyle and Greco-Roman wrestling that we have today certainly came from Palé, and it was pretty much well preserved. So let's talk a little bit about the rules in more details. So there is no kicking or striking, obviously, no eye gouging or biting, only in Sparta, pancration in particular. In Sparta they allowed these, so they were like the savages of the group. So the referee would have to look and see whether there is twisting of the fingers or bending of the fingers. So even back then it was still considered like a dirty tactic. Not wrist locking, but bending the fingers. You're not allowed to strike the genitals nor squeeze them. You're allowed to do any type of submission in order to scare or really hurt someone in order to make them submit. There's also like penalties that were actually punished by whipping. The referee would actually whip the dirty player, and of course you have to score 3 points in order to win. Like I said, you have to slam someone flat on their back and hips and shoulders. Also you have to tap them out. Also you have to put them outside of the wrestling area. So after you score a point, the match is reset. You are given a few minutes or moments before you start wrestling again. So kind of like a break, kind of like the ending of a round. So the match starts and ends with referee's signal. There was a boys division and men's division. There was no weight division or like height or anything. It was just the boys playing or wrestling, and you also have the men's wrestling. The referee can stop the match at any time if he believes a point has been scored, but the wrestlers should continue. The wrestlers should be stopped immediately, even if they are unaware if a point was scored. For example, if you did like a rolling ippon, for example, and he's on top of you and they like continue to wrestle, it's the referee's job to stop the match immediately. So also the contestant will start the match at the beginning or of the center of the mat, and they're not touching, but they should be at close range and thus begin to grapple. And it's all of course the referee will give the signal. So the wrestling mat was around the 28 by 28 meters, so it's like a square foot, like a square, and it was filled with sand. So very much similar like what we have in sumo, what we have in, for example, boch. There's no surface. They would just wrestle out in the field. Anyone who touches anything, they were considered as defeated. In judo, you have to score the ippon. Sometimes you go down. If it's not flat on the back, you can go down and tap them out. The only thing that's missing with Palé, it would be the pin. And if there's the pin, that means they really thought of everything. So it really shows that throughout everything that we have done when it comes to grappling throughout the ages, throughout the civilizations, whether it is Chinese, whether it is Mongolian, whether it is Indian, whether it is Greek, the West, the East, we all came to the same conclusion, is tapping out someone and also slamming them down flat on their back. The Indians have thought of the pin with Mallayuda and Kushti, for example. The Chinese and the Mongolians is to put someone down at any kind sole of the feet, even though I'm not very much with this, because flat on their back, it really shows that it was a controlled throw. But if you just fall down on one knee, I mean that you can still pretty much go about. But this video, like I said, is very important for the idea of this theory that the Greeks had it and then they went to the East and they spread it out throughout Asia. I don't think it's necessarily true. Is there influence from Alexander the Great going into the East, especially Central Asia? Of course, there is a lot of literary works. There's a lot of grammatical and literary and artistic works that are influenced. So is there cultural influence when it comes to wrestling and warfare? 100%. But the idea that everything, like they just took everything and gave it to the East, is, I'm afraid it's not so true. When you have naked wrestling, very much like the Greeks, stretching back to 9,000 years old, I would say this really puts this theory to sleep, in my opinion. But nonetheless, all the foundations of Western grappling, like I said, freestyle, folk style, and Greco-Roman wrestling are 100% found in here. You see Palé, the sculpture where he's body locking someone and holding them up, about to arch his back, the stance, the collar tie, all that, you can still see it being alive in Western grappling today. So, but obviously they removed the submissions, they removed the chokes and the biting and the eye gouging. They kept it mostly pins and throws. So like I said, this one is for the Greeks and my audience. Thank you so much for being here for like quite some time now. You've been leaving comments for about a year, I believe. So thank you so much. Also, please consider supporting me on Patreon. I have exclusive content for the patrons only. Also, don't forget to check out Josh Simon's shop for historical t-shirts and historical articles. So if you have anything else to add, let me know down below. This was Shadi, and thank you for listening.